Hello, everyone. We're about to watch a commutation hearing for a horrific crime that took place in 1982. As many of you know, commutation means that they have received a life sentence without the opportunity of parole. With this hearing, if approved, then the governor, if he signs off on it, it will give the opportunity for a second parole hearing, which would then set them free if also approved. But with that, let's jump in. I do have the court details for this case, so we'll watch this through and then we'll review the details after the hearing.
All right, Mr. Segura, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir, would you introduce yourself, tell us your name and your DOC number?
I'm Jack Segura, 101469.
Okay, and counsel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, ma'am. Robert Lancaster, here on behalf of Mr. Segura with the LSU Parole and Reentry Clinic. I'm here today with Madison Rowland. She is a third-year law student at the Law Center. She is certified under Louisiana Supreme Court Rule 20, and under that certification will be representing Mr. Segura at today's hearing.
Thank you. Let me acknowledge the folks who joined us who are there with you. Mr. Segura, we have Amy Segura, Blaine Segura, Kim Martin, and Chris Poirier. Well, how do you say Chris's last name?
Poirier, you said it right.
Poirier.
Yes, ma'am.
Also joining us, we have a parole project and Professor Concar, who both of whom, Madison Rowland. Well, that's your counsel who will be speaking. First, I'll read some information into the record, Mr. Segura, after which I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Freeman. Your case has been assigned to him. And then we'll, after the interview has concluded, we'll hear from the folks who have indicated they'd like to speak. And before we turn it over to Ms. Rowland, we'll be allowed to make a statement. Okay? Ready? Jack Segura, your DOC numbers 101469. You're here today seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in Iberia and St. Martin Parish. You have a second-degree murder conviction for which you were sentenced to life in April 1982. You have a simple escape type 1 conviction for which you were sentenced in September 1983 to 4 years, and those 4 years are running consecutive to the life sentence. Mr. Segura, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Would you answer Mr. Freeman's questions, please?
Okay, Mr. Segura, how long have you served on this Senate?
How many years have I served? 41 years. In April will be 41 years.
Okay, and how old are you?
I'm 59.
What's your educational level?
I have a bachelor's degree.
Okay, great. You got your GED and bachelor's while you was in prison?
Yes, sir. Both. Yes, sir.
Tell me what happened. I mean, what went on between you and Todd? What led to this crime?
The night that Todd and I were drinking the night of this murder, and we're out drinking, and we had a dispute between one another that led to me stabbing him to death.
Okay, was the dispute over marijuana?
No, sir. No, sir.
At any time were y'all going to cut any marijuana?
Yes, sir. That was the original plan.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What caused the dispute?
Todd had accused me of stealing guns from his father's house.
All right. What age you started using drugs?
11 years old.
Okay, what was your drug of choice?
Well, that was the first drug I ever did. That was marijuana at that time. Yes, sir.
What other drugs have you done?
Since then,
After the marijuana, yeah. What else have you done in your life?
Oh, I've marijuana, alcohol, which is a drug, a sedative drug, barbiturates, heroin, cocaine, LSD.
You've done a little bit of everything.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. What have you done? What kind of treatment have you received throughout your life? And what have you done since you've been in prison?
I've been through Alcoholics Anonymous. I have taken Living in Balance program, phase 1 and phase 2. I've taken Narcotics Anonymous, and I have been sober 19 years this year.
Okay. So back about 16, 18 years ago, you tried to commit suicide while you was in prison?
16, 18 years ago,
Right.
that was a drug overdose.
That was a drug overdose. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All
Not
right.
intentional.
Is that when you made your mind up to try to get some help and get off of the drug?
Yes, sir.
Your disciplinary record and everything much greatly improved after that
Yes, sir.
incident.
Yes, sir. Made a drastic change in my life that year.
Okay, do you consider yourself alcoholic and a drug addict?
Recovering, yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. Tracy, does he have a detainer from the U.S. Marshals?
According to his record, yes, sir, he does.
Do you know what that detainer is in regard to, Mr. Segura?
Yes, sir.
What's that about?
It's threatening communications, writing a threatening letter and putting it in the U.S. mail.
Okay. So it's still active, right, Warden?
Yes, sir. To the best of my knowledge, here in the record, it is.
Just a point of clarification, if I could, Mr. Furman, this is a detainer based on a conviction. So it's an established conviction with a 10-year sentence.
Okay.
So he's already been tried and convicted. So all it is a hold. So should he be released in Louisiana, he would be picked up by federal authorities to serve that sentence. So it's not outstanding. It's not outstanding, and it's not for pending charges.
Gotcha. I appreciate that clarification. You've taken tons of classes. I mean, a whole bunch. I'm not gonna try to sit here and list all what you've taken. What class you think you got the most out of?
What class or what program? Particular class you're asking about?
Program or class?
Okay, I would like to say program, and that was the hospice program. I think I got the most of working at the hospice program. The 9 years I worked at the hospital, I think I got the most. I learned more life lessons from that one job, volunteering. Class, I can say it would be substance abuse, of course, because I taught it so many times, and it is my favorite.
Okay. All right, the judge and the sheriff are opposed, and the DA, the offender, your family, Kim, and your brother Barry are unopposed. Bobby Broussard, the victim's brother, is opposed. You have a low risk, minimum custody, a good institutional record. You had 74 write-ups. The last one was in 2017, and before that it was 2007. You know, you like two different lives you've lived in prison, which you've explained to us, you know, what happened. What's your medical history?
Medical history?
Yeah.
I don't have a medical history, sir, other than losing my teeth.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Warden Calhoun, is there any input from you folks?
Yeah, the biggest thing with Jack is in 14, he obtained his Min C, that with the detainer and with the escape charge that's on his record, that was gonna be the highest thing that he was gonna see from us. He has served even prior to that point in 14 as a mentor, and more recently, about just a few months after our Wolf to our CCR dorm, as we get these extended inmates out of extended lockdown, we transition them through a dormitory, and he's lived there with that population and mentoring them.
Thank you. Good. We will hear from the folks who want to speak in support. First, could we hear from Mr. Jack's sister, Kim Martin?
You can just sit right here.
You just sit, stay seated, your mom.
And there we go. There you go. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Louisiana Pardon Board. My name is Kim Segura Martin, and I'm Jack David Segura's sister. On behalf of all of our family, I give our sincere condolences to Bobby again, and to all of the Broussard family. Bobby and Todd were our friends. We're very sorry for your loss and pain through these past 40 years, 11 months. We pray you find relief from the pain Jack caused to your family. I believe Jack was damaged at an early age by childhood hurts, and these wounds, along with the influence of older family members, resulted in Jack experimenting with drugs at a very young age and using it to self-medicate, which spiraled into severe addiction. I noticed he was becoming increasingly angry, depressed, selfish, and lacking compassion to others. And this came to a peak at the age of 18 when he committed this crime. Jack was very lost at this time. Jack's life changed in 2004. I noticed many changes in him. I witnessed God was in his daily life. Jack was no longer turning to drugs and self-medicating. Instead, he was turning to God, and he became a born-again believer in Jesus. He became very compassionate, very loving, very caring of others. I witnessed the beginning of this new life, God breaking him down and building him up again, making him a very humble, compassionate man, putting others' needs before his own and serving those around him with love and a new heart. After Jack serves his federal sentence, my husband, Jack P. Morton III, and I are able to provide Jack with a stable, sober home and employment. Through our business, we have owned and operated for almost 30 years. Through our church, our Savior's Church, where I have served faithfully for the last 10 years, we have many sober groups who will welcome Jack with open arms. He will have many opportunities to serve the community, and he can continue the ministry and work he has already been doing in prison. Members of the Louisiana Pardon Board, my brother is a changed man, and we pray you agree that he is deserving of a recommendation for clemency. Thank you very much for your time and consideration of Jack. Thank you so much.
Chris Poirier, we'd like to hear from you.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, members of the Louisiana Pardon Board. My name is Christopher Poirier, and I'm Jack Segura's nephew. My wife Chelsea and I are in full support for our Uncle Jack's early release and his second chance. I visited my Uncle Jack at the Louisiana State Penitentiary since I was 6 weeks old and up until my teenage years, and then through phone calls and letters as I grew older. Although I did not know Uncle Jack as the 18-year-old that entered into the prison system, I do know the 59-year-old rehabilitated, older, wiser man that he is, and he has changed. My Uncle Jack that sits before you today is committed to his sobriety, He walks daily with God, and he serves others by teaching them how to live a sober and balanced life. Uncle Jack has our support as well as our church family support. I am a youth leader at the First Baptist Church in Lafayette, and he's on our adult Sunday school's prayer list. He will be embraced by many new friends and church family members. We have many fellowship gatherings and groups available to him to help him continue his walk with God, maintain a life of sobriety. Members of the Louisiana Pardon Board, thank you so much for your time and consideration of my Uncle Jack's second chance.
All right, well done, thank you. Professor Conklin.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Marcus Conkar. I'm the chair of the Sociology Department at Loyola University, and I met Jack in 2017 when I interviewed him at length for a project on life without parole. Jack was one of approximately 200 people that I interviewed, and when you sit across from that many people and record their life history, you develop insights into authentic. What you see is what you get. Jack was a self-destructive heroin addict when he came to prison at the age of 18. He's very open about that. As you know, he served 41 years on a life sentence and has never lost sight of the harm that he caused. It's still with him. As you heard, the victim in this case was a friend. Jack worked in hospice care at Angola for almost a decade. This took up a lot of our time in our discussion. And that work, I know, requires an enormous well of compassion and love for other people. Jack comforted over 50 people to their passing. It's a selfless way of life, and you just can't fake that. As you know, he graduated from the seminary. He has a lot of family support grounded in a deep faith. Jack falls into a statistical category of recidivism that is less than 0.01%. Every single possible variable associated with recidivism, Jack is on the lowest end of all of those factors. If released, I'm quite certain he'll continue to be an asset to others. I'd like to just be brief and thank you for the opportunity to speak on Jack's behalf.
Mr. Segura, is there a statement you'd like to make before we turn it over to Ms. Rowland?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to thank the board, first of all, for this opportunity. And it's an opportunity that we haven't had in 3 decades. So I thank you for this opportunity. And I'd like for the pain and the suffering that I've caused them. And I'd like to apologize to my own family for the pain and the grief that I've caused them as well. And my community, the people, the residents of Iberia Parish, as well as the state of Louisiana. I apologize to you because I know the years, the 41 years, I've cost the state a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Rowland?
Thank you, Ms. Renatza. Members of the board, the 51-year-old man who sits before you today is not the same 18-year-old drug addict that committed these crimes 41 years ago. The institution has recognized that Jack is a model inmate, a trusted member of the community, and someone who has turned his life around since coming to prison. He was even asked to go to Camp C to mentor younger inmates and teach substance abuse, as you heard from the warden before. And the institution recognized that Jack Segura is the inmate that they want other inmates to become. Jack has worked diligently to rehabilitate himself and live a life that creates a positive impact on others. The thing that contributed the most to his criminal behavior was his drug abuse. And after his overdose in 2004, Jack fully committed to his sobriety and spirituality and has had a complete transformation, as evidenced by his institutional record. Jack has taken full advantage of the self-improvement, educational, and reentry programs available to him and has demonstrated growth and maturity by facilitating mini classes, being an inmate minister, and mentoring in CCR. The last 20 years have demonstrated an unwavering commitment to sobriety. He understands how his alcohol and substance abuse contributed to his criminal behavior, and he is committed to maintaining his sobriety upon release. Jack has also found his purpose, helping others with their substance abuse issues for the past 10 years, and he has a plan to continue this work upon release through mentoring at-risk youth and teaching substance abuse at sober living homes. And he does have a reentry plan, a solid reentry and residence employment plan with his sister, who you just heard from before, at their business and residence in Youngsville. Jack's dedication to self-improvement, furthering his education and institutional compliance demonstrates that he is worthy of a recommendation for clemency. He has worked diligently to prepare himself for success upon release and address the issues that led him down a destructive path. If granted clemency, Jack is committed to using his second chance to continue the work he has done in prison and positively impact the lives of others. For these reasons, Jack Segura respectfully requests a recommendation commuting his sentences to a total term of 80 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The board is for, start with Mr. Free.
Okay, Mr. Segura, done great in prison. You've done a lot of community service to give back to the prison since you've been there. And also you've served 41 years and had great programs. My vote is to grant commutation 75 years with immediate effect.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Segura. How are you?
I'm good, sir.
Mr. Segura, based upon the length of your incarceration, the positive remarks by Warden Falcon, your community service with the hospice program, and a good transitional plan, my vote is to do your sentence for 75 years with immediate Lord.
Mayor Bella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For all the reasons as stated by my colleagues, my vote likewise is to recommend a commutation 75 years with immediate parole eligibility.
All right, and Mr. Segura, I do agree with my colleagues. My vote is the same for the same reason. So we will make that recommendation on your behalf to the governor. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Warden Felder, that does conclude our business at your facility. We're going to adjourn. It's 1:17 p.m. Thanks for helping us out today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so let's unpack that. You know, it's always interesting when there's not in this entire case, there was not one voice of opposition. There's no DA, there's no victim opposition. And when you have a hearing with no victim opposition, it's just, it moves quickly. And I think it's a travesty. Really, I do. I think it's a major travesty. I think it's if there is no one there to stand up for the victim, then there has to be a DA there. If this man was sentenced to life and he felt it was important enough to lock him up for life, it just out of basic decency for the dead. It's interesting. We're talking about how he's so selfless and how he's so involved in the burials. And I agree with that. I mean, attending someone's funeral, especially in his situation, is one of the best things that you can, I think one of the most selfless things you can do, because they can never return the favor. They're dead. But on that mark, it's like, why is no one here to speak on behalf of the deceased? Now, you might ask yourself, you might say, well, maybe there's just no victim opposite. Maybe he didn't have family. Maybe, and I just want to say what we have seen on here before is we've actually seen after this is a commutation hearing, so the governor still has to sign off on it. And that might take 1 year, it might take 5 years. He might not even sign off on it. It might be the next governor. And the thing is that okay, so I lost my train of thought. So the point is that we've seen a hearing like this where the governor did sign off, and then it was the parole hearing because that's what happens next. And usually at that point, it's a shoo-in. It's a very short hearing, and the parole board basically just checks if they had done anything wrong, any write-ups. And the victim showed up and said, "Hey, we never got a notification of the commutation hearing." And they were irate. And then the parole board actually shot back and said, "We have a great staff here that reaches out to everyone, and we reached out to you and didn't hear back." And it was like, I did not believe it for a second. Of course I believed the family. So just take that in mind. There is always a chance that there are victims out there that did not see this. Don't know though. And that's another reason why it's so important for an assistant DA to show up. Now, according to the court transcript, which I'll drop in here, the defendant, who was 18 at the time, was indicted June 1st, 1982, and charged with second-degree murder of Todd Broussard. On September 29th, 1982, following a trial by jury, the defendant was found guilty and charged. Unanimous decision, November 16, 1982. Defendant moved for a new trial. So that's why we have this, because it's an appeal. And he moved for a new trial. It's actually quite interesting. So on his initial trial, he claimed that it was self-defense. He claimed that he was stabbed first, and then he went and stabbed to death his attacker. That was his story at trial. After he lost, he then appealed and said that his friend killed him, and he only stabbed him after he was dead already. So this was, these were his defense claims. So the facts of the case are, on the night of April, and we don't really have a lot of details of the facts because he had lied so much, and there's not, but it's April 24th, 1982, the defendant, Jack Segura, and his 17-year-old friend, Todd Broussard, attended a party in New Iberia. The defendant and his friend, Todd, decided to leave the party in order to harvest some marijuana plants at an undisclosed location. Before leaving the residence, the defendant took a large butcher knife from his host's kitchen. The defendant and Todd drove to an empty lot near, see, this already seems like premeditated, and he got second degree, near Duratov's hospital in Siberia. Shortly after midnight, the defendant appeared on foot at a local drive-in. While there, he informed an acquaintance of his, and he had just stabbed somebody. So that's the information we have. We don't actually know what happened because he never said what happened. And that's something on that point, I don't know why the board didn't say, tell us exactly what happened. We need to know the truth. Tell us exactly what happened. And he said he stabbed him, but listen to this. This is why I'm telling you. This is why it's a little concerning for me. We see a lot of these cases, but I'll tell you why. So yeah, he told an acquaintance of his cousin that the cousin arrived shortly after, took him home. The defendant then told his cousin that he had stabbed a fellow to death. The two telephoned their dad or his dad, and the three of them then went to the home of the assistant chief of police. The defendant's father told the assistant chief of police a friend of the defendant may have stabbed someone. The defendant then led the group to an empty lot near the hospital where he found a dead body. Now, the autopsy disclosed that Mr. Broussard had multiple stab wounds to the back, chest, and brain. The victim had been stabbed 14 times. This wasn't one stab. This wasn't two. This was 14 times. This is rage. This is premeditated first-degree murder. The forensic pathologist testified that death resulted from the stab wound to the lower back, which had pierced the victim's liver, resulting in severe internal bleeding. At least 2 of the wounds to the chest and the brain were determined to be made post-mortem, which it could just mean he had bled out and died so fast that he literally died before he could complete the 14 stab wounds. And I don't know, I don't understand how these things work. If that's actually possible, can someone die that quickly? Or if he had come back and stabbed him additionally after he was dead, which makes a difference. And the irony is that it's in the parking lot of a hospital. Which would be an extra, you know, if he had come back and he's, the defendant testified in his own behalf. He said it was in self-defense. He was unable to explain how this defense was compatible with forensic pathologist's determination that the fatal wounds were inflicted in the victim's back and that there were at least 2 post-mortem wounds. He stabbed him in the back. It was a unanimous verdict guilty of second degree. Again, maybe they just said second degree because he was getting life anyways. I don't know. And then after he pled guilty, he made up another story. He said it was someone else that stabbed him. He was going to send probably some innocent person to prison. It's just, it's like, he obviously did something when he was really young and really dumb and messed up on drugs and alcohol. I would assume more than just marijuana. But you stab someone 14 times. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It feels obnoxious even counting them out. That felt long. That felt awkward for me to even say. It just takes a long time. 2 of them post-mortem, which is... And it was premeditated. He took a knife and went into the car and then went into the parking lot. And this was his friend. So it seems like this person, is he going to be able to control himself? Again, though, when you don't see victim opposition of any kind, and he has been locked up for, what did they say, 2 life sentences? 41 years. I just want, I would have liked for them to have gotten into it. I would like them to explain why he did it. I would have liked to hear that. And then I would like to really know where the victims are. The other person who spoke, Marcus M. Concord, PhD, Associate Professor at Loyola. I'll drop his link down in this description. Yes, he's done some interesting studies. It's interesting to me to hear how many lifers he's interviewed. I'd like to see what information he has on that and what I can read on it. That's very interesting. And how did you think the attorney in training did? She seemed nervous, but I thought she recovered. It's the hardest thing to do when you get up there and feel that you slip up at that moment. that pause, which was only a few seconds, would have felt like a minute, would have felt like eternity for her. So I've been there in my own different things, and to be able to recover from it is the biggest sign of that you can make it through, because it's harder to get to recover than it is to just not make a mistake at all and go through it. But I guess that's it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And with that, I'll let you go. And I'm back. I am back because I forgot to mention something that was really interesting that stuck out. So I had to come back and re-record this. Remember at the beginning, it said that he had a retainer from the federal government for 10 years sentence that he was already convicted on. Well, I found the information on that. So I just think it's really interesting that, by the way, yeah, he's getting the commutation if the governor signs off on it, and then he gets paroled. He's going to get immediately grabbed by the federal government and serve another 10 years, which is just, again, it just adds to this entire case of, I think, kind of absurdity. So this is what happened. After he was arrested, he also had an escape charge. He escaped. He was caught. And then he was sent to jail, which is not fun. You want to better be at a federal facility than in jail. And he wanted to extort the jury that sentenced him in the escape. Okay, this isn't the murder trial. This is now the escape. So what he did, November of 1983, him and 3 others, which he's accused of manipulating them into doing it for him. This actually is kind of funny, and you'll see what I mean. So after he was sent to jail after being convicted of escaping from a federal facility in December 1983, Scott was transferred to another facility with the co-defendant and remained in St. Martin Jail. Each of the jurors in Scott's case trial received, so each of the jurors in his trial received a letter dated December 28, 1983 from Lafayette, Louisiana. The letters read substantially as follows. So the juries that convicted him in the escape all received a letter. It said, "Hey," with their name. "Just a brief line to let you know that unjustly convicted at a recent trial, one of our comrades, for which you will be justly reimbursed with a death sentence to be carried out by another of our members as soon as possible, unless you send the below address $1,000 in cash promptly!" Exclamation point. "There will be no second letters or warnings. Your life is your choice!" Exclamation point. P.S. Merry Christmas. Yeah, they sent a letter from jail to each of his jurors that convicted him of escape. And then it says, after P.S. Merry Christmas, "If you notify the FBI, the deal is off. You're dead!" Exclamation point. Then he leaves a P.O. Box 247, St. Martinville, Louisiana. I'll drop the link to this in the description. Then it goes on to say, now that was his letter. So he sent the letter, and he had fellow inmates send the letters as well. Some of the letters. "Needless to say, this was far from the most foolproof extortion scheme ever designed. Segura, Poole, and Fabiano signed all of the extortion letters. The return addresses on the letters was the St. Martin Parish Jail." Because all incoming mail is inspected by jail authorities, it would of course have been impossible for the extortionist to collect the $1,000, even if anyone had mailed it to them. Mind you, $1,000 is a lot of money now. It was a lot more in 1982. Although Scotts did not sign any of the extortion letters, the testimony indicated that he was the instigator of the crime. During the escape trial, the judge asked the jurors their names and addresses. Oh, right. So during, how did he get their addresses and names? Well, during the escape trial, he asked several of the jurors noticed that Stotts was writing down, this is called Stotts, but it was all of them. It was Stotts, Jack. So so this is how they're saying that. I know we're using the word Stotts now, but that was his co-defendant. Although Stotts did not sign any of the extortion letters, the testimony indicated that he was instigator of the crime. During the Voyeur, Dayard, and Stotts escape trial, the judge asked the jurors their names and addresses. Several jurors noticed Stotts writing down their information. Interesting, right? You might not want to have someone writing down their information. That's something you would think they would have thought about. Several jurors noticed him writing information. 2 inmates who served with Stotts testified that Stotts bragged about his cleverness in the devising the extortion plan. A cellmate of Stotts named Dillingham explained that Stotts said that he wrote approximately 6 or 7 of the letters. He was laughing, and he said, "I conned these 3 idiots in the county jail and told them if they wanted to get some federal time to write these letters and threaten these jurors." So now I get what happened. Jack is one of the 3 idiots that was conned by Stotts into writing the letters. I guess he was not the brightest tool in the shed. None of them were. Wow. Now the reason why they would do it for him is not just for money, but here was what it was. He said that Stotts said that he wrote, he conned these 3 idiots in the county jail and told them that they want to get federal time to write these letters and threaten these jurors, but wait until after I had already gone, and that way it would look like I didn't have anything to do with it. Okay, so he said, write it. Well, why would they write it? I guess it wasn't just for money, but it was because they could then get federal time and get out of jail because these jails suck. They want to go to federal prison. An inmate named Colt testified that Stotts boasted to him about the extortion plot, how Stotts could not be connected to it, and Stotts apparently conceived this plan because he believed that his conviction for escape would be overturned on appeal, and in his mind, juror intimidation would make his conviction on retrial less probable. I mean, I don't really get that logic. Anyways, his plan did not work, of course. Oh, man. An indictment against the 4 was returned in April 1985. Count 1 charge, all in conspiracy and violation. Extortion, conspired to send threatening letters through United States mail for the purpose of extorting money from former jurors. Charge all with various violations by engaging the substance. I mean, basically, wow, what morons. Scott's Toys. Let's see if they mention Jack any more specifically in here, in addition to being listed as a versus. Yeah, so that's basically it. But to think that this is going to come back and bite him 35 years later or something is well, more than that. It is actually quite is actually quite interesting. I mean, even if he gets out, he's going to have to spend another 10 years because he was, I guess, tricked into sending a letter to jurors from jail so that he can go back to federal prison, of which he just tried to escape from. Anyways, I did want to add that part. And with that, I will let you go.